Hey gang, I've been gone a while. As I told you, I was going to family late last week, so I haven't been on in a while. And then yesterday, I was still struggling with some loss of my voice, which I still am a little, but I'm going to plow through today so we can spend some time together. Actually, so I please forgive all the coughs or the growlies that you hear. Um, I've been doing some series of subjects that by request from people, and I'm still going through the request list. Today, I'm going to focus on managing difficult conversations, and we talked about this some back in a relationship series that I did. But I'll expand on some of that and just give some tips that hopefully will help you in any kind of difficult conversations that you may come upon in your life, personally or professionally. So, just some different thoughts. One is there's a quote out there, and I can't remember who said it, and I didn't look it up for this, but it says, "Seek to understand, then to be understood." And I think that's kind of a nice general approach to conversations, especially if you're expecting them to be difficult on some level. To understand the other person or group first, then to be understood. And what that challenges us all to do is to listen more before we start speaking or before we respond. Some say we have two ears because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak because we only have one mouth. And I think that's kind of a nice way to look at it too. But it's very important that you get heard and that you feel understood in your relationships as well, no matter what kind of relationship that it is. But it's a nice general thought. Another nice general thought is it's better to be kind than right. It's better to be kind than right. So that's kind of a philosophical thing in asking ourselves, how important is this that I really work so hard at this conversation to be right? Would I rather just keep my relationship peaceful, or do I really need to press on this until I feel like I've proven myself to be correct? So I would just hold on to those two thoughts a little bit anytime that you're approaching what might be a conflictual or difficult conversation. Okay, so let's look at some points. Some basics, very basics, is when you are listening to another person and seeking to understand, you want to really be at eye level with them as much as possible and give them eye contact as much as possible. You don't have to stare, but pay attention to them like you're really listening, and you might nod your head and give some kind of confirmation physically that you're with them. This doesn't mean you're agreeing with them necessarily or that you're disagreeing with them necessarily, but just be present, be very present, so they feel like, okay, she's at least trying to hear me and understand me. So keep those in mind. I mean, a lot of what happens when people are upset is they start rolling their eyes at other people, or covering their eyes, or look the other way when they're uncomfortable in a conversation. But if you can somehow stay right in there with them, even if you're not feeling great, but if you could stay in there, then you are working on unifying instead of separating in that conversation. Okay? And then we don't want to interrupt, of course. No interrupting. Some people use things like talking sticks or any kind of, this pen could be a talking stick. Some people I know call these difficult conversations heart talks, and so they get a little heart shaped something or other, and so the idea is whoever is holding that at the time is the person who has permission to talk. When they're done, they pass it to the next person who shares their points or whatever. So whether you have a symbol of that or not, remember it's not your turn when someone else is speaking, and make sure they're complete with their thought before you go into yours. And you might even say, okay, if they pause for a minute, And you might say, okay, so would you may I respond now, or I have something to say if you're ready to listen to my perspective, or something like that, to get a signal from them to go ahead. Okay, and then if you want to get really good at listening, you want to reflect back what a person says. Now, this is a therapeutic tool. Therapists use this all the time, and life coaches like myself, but often in personal relationships, we're not as good at it. But there's nothing dramatically difficult about it, actually. A little bit of practice, you'll have it down pat in no time. So reflecting back or mirroring is basically saying something back to the person, to acknowledging what you heard them say. So if I say to someone I live with, it's important to me that we keep, the trash taken out regularly, and that there isn't dirty laundry scattered on the floor, that everything's in the baskets, and that the dishes that are used during the day are put in the dishwasher or washed and put away. I don't like a messy environment. Okay, so then if someone's going to reflect back to me, they might say, oh, so it's important to you that things be kept in their appropriate place in a timely manner, and that the house stays organized and neat. And I'll be like, yes, right? They heard me. They reflected back. They mirrored. They didn't parrot. They weren't parrots and say the exact same. We'd say, hello, Polly, but yet gave a general sense that they did hear, and kind of summarized a little bit. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out thing, but it gives a sense of, yeah, I really heard you. Okay, so, and again, they may not be agreeing. They may not be disagreeing. They're just reflecting. That is a great tool to unify people in a challenging conversation. Okay. When you do disagree, and you're in a relationship, you might make very clear that you're identifying each other's needs. Okay, let's say this is a spouse relationship, partner, two people that work closely together. Any relationship, I guess, really. If you have something you want to point out that's bothering you, you want to own it by using I statements. I am feeling, stressed because I always find dirty dishes in the sink. And what I need instead is for you to keep up your own part of that. When you use a dish, that you clean it, put it away, or put it in the dishwasher at least. So there's, and then the other person might say, well, what I need is to hurry. I always have to eat quickly and get out the door to get to my job on time or whatever. So I need to not have to do a whole lot of that at the time. So you have different needs, right? So you want to look at, this one needs this one needs that. Let me think of a better example. That one didn't play out very well. Okay, here's a great one. This is a real one from my life from years ago. I was married, and my husband at the time traveled a lot for work. And I was at home with small children, and always at home, home, a lot. And so he would come back from being gone for several days from working far away and in hotels and restaurants. And I was at home eating, chicken nuggets, macaroni and cheese, because I was feeding little children and just eating what they were eating back then. And so when he would come home, I would say, oh, please, I would love to go out to eat. Can we get a sitter and go out to eat? I would just love to get out of the house and da. But he'd just done that. He'd been doing that for 3 or 4 days, right? So what he needed was to be at home and eat a home-cooked meal, and to be able to just kick back and be at home. So our needs were exactly opposite. Okay, so when you're in a relationship and you have that difficult conversation, your needs are exactly opposite. So you want to identify each other's needs and get really clear. So for me to be clear for him was to realize that, oh, he's been on the road, eating 3 meals a day out, and he's sleeping in a different bed, and, alone, and is happy to be at home and eating a home-cooked meal that his wife made. And his challenge to understand me was, oh yeah, she's been in this house, 24/7 with these little people, not really eating adult food, no adult company, kind of feeling isolated, and would do well to get out. To get out and have someone cook her a meal at a restaurant and feel, kind of spoiled that way. Get a little space from the domestic environment. So you identify each other's needs, even when they're clashing, and then look for compromise. So compromise might be that, 1 week when he gets home from his traveling, I agree to stay home and home cooked meals, and we eat at home all the meals. The next weekend, maybe he takes me out to a restaurant. Or maybe the compromise is, okay, you stay home, make meals, feed the kids. I'll go out with my girlfriends to a restaurant. Or, so taking turns, or sometimes we do what you need, sometimes we do what I need, that kind of thing. So looking for that. But the first step is to be really clear, identifying what your need is, and making sure the other person gets it, that they understand and that you understand them. Because if you miss that piece, there isn't going to be any compromise finding or anything. So you make the most important step is getting understood in the first place. So a great way to do that is to say, when you blank, I feel blank, and what I need instead is blank. So when you blank want to eat home-cooked meals all the time when you've been traveling, I feel a little disappointed sometimes, and because I would like the opposite. What I need instead is for sometimes that we go out and have a nice dinner together away from the kids, and that I feel like I'm getting a nice meal that's taken care of for me sometimes, and instead of always cooking for everybody else. Okay, so when you blank, I feel that's you owning your problem blank, and what I need instead, or what I'd like to request instead, is blank. Okay? Okay, let me look at my list here. Okay, here's another kind of difficult conversation. This has come up a lot this year with the political environment we're in, and this can come up with other controversial topics, like maybe sexual orientation, maybe religious beliefs, politics for sure, anything that's kind of a charged, what could be controversial conversation where people have lots of very strong opinions usually. So let's say you want to have a conversation with one of your friends, or the neighbors, or coworkers, or even in your own marriage or family, where you have very opposite beliefs in any topic at all. So, but you want to have the conversation. You want to have the conversation, but you anticipate it could be difficult. Well, so the main thing, number one, listen to the other person's perspective. Listen to it. You don't have to agree, nor do you have to point out all the reasons why you disagree necessarily. You can just listen and go, oh, I never thought about it that way before. Oh, you believe that this is important. Oh, your perspective is that whatever it is. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that with me. These are all like unifying responses, but it doesn't mean you agree. You don't have to agree. They don't have to agree with you. If your agenda of the conversation is to change their mind, it's probably not going to go well, because most people are very strong and know what they believe, and if they say they'd like to look at a subject further to consider other ideas, great, have that conversation. But again, if your agenda is just they're wrong, I'm right, I'm going to change their mind right here, right now, we're going to sit here till we do that, your approach will not get you anywhere. That's a very in-your-face, aggressive approach, and it's destructive and not unifying. So it's more unifying to listen, hear their perspective, go, oh, interesting, again, incorporating the nonverbals. So you believe, reflecting back kind of what you're hearing them say, make sure you understand their beliefs, and not not needing to be right, but be kind, and realize that you don't have to prove anything to them either about your position. You can take your turn to share your position. Hopefully they won't be defensive about it. Hopefully you won't either. Just say, oh, well, where I'm coming from with my religious beliefs on that is that, I was taught this, that, or the other, and I'm comfortable with that in my life still today, and so I do live by that belief, and it's interesting how you were taught something different, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No one has to be made wrong in a difficult conversation. No one has to be made wrong. Again, really, please remember that. Again, there are lots of ways to think about all subjects, and I'm not sure there's any one right way to think about anything, even about this, what I'm saying right now. So please keep that in mind. That's a gentler approach. And again, remember the larger goal. And what I mean by that is hopefully the larger goal in your life is to have peaceful, enjoyable relationships, that you are striving to come together positively. And if you are, then you won't think you have to prove yourself all the time. You won't think you have to be right all the time, and you won't have to prove them wrong or change their minds or save them from themselves and their beliefs or anything like that. Instead, you'll come and go, oh, I just want to listen and understand. And I have many subjects that people disagree with me or I disagree with them, but there's unity in our relationships. There isn't any need for us to fight. There's some conversations with some people I know it's best for us not to have, for their sake or mine, because we're just on such different pages, but I don't think they're bad people, and I don't think they think I'm a bad person. It's just we have really different thoughts about some things. So keep all of that in mind. Keep all of it in mind, and that will promote conversation. That will promote communication. That will promote greater understanding. And if there's anything this world needs, I'm telling you right now, right within our own houses and all across the world, is greater understanding and unifying in that understanding and respect for our differences. So anyway, I hope these tips have helped. So when you're approaching some kind of difficult conversation, whether it's at home, at the office, in any kind of relationship, that you'll feel a little more equipped to manage it differently. And the other thing too, one more thought, is you might I've been labeling it manage difficult conversations this whole time. I'd like to suggest that we not anticipate that they'll be difficult, but instead anticipate that we will handle ourselves well, we will listen, and understanding will occur. And so, because the more positively we approach anything, the better it usually goes. Anyway, thanks. Hope you have a great day.